VST System Link allows us to hook up multiple computers, share and/or transfer audio and MIDI data back and forth. We can have many computers running as one big system. It's really easy to get it working, you just need to know the basics. You can use any digital audio cable to connect two computers. Use SPDIF, ADAT, TDIF, or AES, as long as each computer has an ASIO-compatible audio card. I have two computers. One of them is running CUBASE, the other is running Nuendo. I have two Hammerfall DSP audio cards from RME, with ADAT cables joining each of them. In my setup, I have the ADAT out of one machine going into the ADAT in of the other machine, and vice versa. Both computers must handshake. In to the out to the in. Having something other than a SPDIF connection is cool because you can have multiple audio channels running between the two computers. If you only have SPDIF, it's okay. You'll just have two mono tracks or one stereo track to play with. You'll have endless MIDI tracks flying back and forth regardless of what method you use. Another good thing is to make sure the audio cards on each computer have low latency. The lower the better. If you have two computers and want to share one keyboard, mouse, and monitor, use a KVM switch box to handle this. Now we have to make sure that the audio clocks are set right. One computer must be the master, and all the other computers must be slaves. Don't forget to set this up, or else nothing will work right. Since this is a video series on CUBASE, CUBASE will be the master. In CUBASE, let's go to Devices, and then Device Setup. After you've selected your ASIO device, click below to access it. You should be able to access the control panel of your audio card here. Some companies do not allow the control panel to be called up here. You'll have to find it on the hard drive and make sure the clock mode is set to master. Let's put the latency down to 3 milliseconds. This is a 2.2 GHz system. It'll have no problem running 3 milliseconds, even on large projects. Now let's go to Nuendo and do the same, but put it on slave mode. I also have this one on 3 milliseconds. Setting the latency low allows us to send audio back and forth without a perceived delay. With my two computers, I have a total system delay, or system latency, of 6 milliseconds. Most audio systems are higher than this with only one audio card, so I'm doing pretty good here. I could run both machines at 1.5 milliseconds, but when I do very large projects, the system can feel sluggish. The only solution? Buy a faster machine and a better sound card. Sometimes buying a new machine can be really expensive, but if you want your latency low, probably look at your sound card first. Make sure it can handle 3 milliseconds, 1.5 milliseconds, etc. Next, we have to make sure both projects have the same sample rate. Let's do this in CUBASE. And now in Nuendo. Now we could just jump straight into the VST System Link window, activate it, and start running, but it's always good to make and test your connections first. This will save you a lot of time and trouble later on. In CUBASE, make as many output buses and input buses as your connection supports. For example, I have ADAT light pipe cables, so that gives me 8 mono tracks or 4 stereo tracks to play with. I'm going to make 4 stereo outputs and 4 stereo input buses. Let's go to our VST Connections window. As you can see, I already have them set up to save some time. Here are my inputs, and here are my outputs. The audio card on my CUBASE system has a lot of ins and outs. 1 to 8 are the first ADAT in and out, 9 to 16 are the next ADAT in and out, and 17 to 24 of course, are the third ADAT in and out. So I'm going to run CUBASE through the VST system link using ADAT 3. I'm going to keep this master bus right here. This allows me just to hear the audio, play it through my mixer, just so you guys at home can hear it too. Now let's go to Nuendo, go to the VST connections window, and set up our inputs and outputs there. I'm going to get rid of this first bus and show you how it's done. Now look how many inputs and outputs I have in my Nuendo system. It's a much shorter list. I have 8 analog inputs and outputs, and then I'll have 1 ADAT port. So I'm going to start right from 9, go to 10, etc. Now let's do our outputs. Nine and 10 seem to have been picked automatically for me. Now let's continue on. All right, now I'm going to close this in Nuendo and open my mixer. Here are my input channels. Then I'm going to route the audio to from CUBASE in a second. Let's go over to CUBASE. Let's shut down this window. Open the mixer. And let's play the song just before I send it over to Nuendo. Alright, now let's send it over to Nuendo. Remember, my master bus is just so we can listen to it. And the 4 stereo outputs are my VST system link outputs. When I send to this output, it's going to go straight into the Nuendo mixer. Let's press play and watch it appear in the Nuendo mixer. There it is. Now we can't hear anything because this is going out of CUBASE into Nuendo, and it's stopping right in Nuendo. I'm going to route it back to CUBASE afterwards, but we'll see that in a second. Now when it goes to Nuendo, just imagine this. I can add effects, I can change EQ, I can do lots of things to it, and then I can send it right back to CUBASE. Once again, more on that in just a moment. Now what if for some reason we wanted to hear the audio at this moment? What we can do is activate a send on this mix channel and send it to the master bus so we can hear it. Watch this. I'm going to hit play and show you how it's done. Let's turn it off and deactivate the send. Press stop. Interesting, huh? Now that we know all the connections are working, let's activate VST System Link. Let's go to the device setup under the devices menu on both machines. There we are in CUBASE. And there we are in Nuendo. Let's go back to CUBASE and press VST System Link. I'm going to show you in Nuendo. Let's do the same. Now we need to pick an audio channel that CUBASE and Nuendo will talk over. This will be our networking channel. Only one bit of information is used to network, so you can still send audio on this audio channel. Now let me explain this. If your project is running at 24 bits, that means your audio channel is at 24 bits. Then minus the 1 bit of information used to network, we have 23 bits left. Now this is way more than enough, since you'll have about 138 dBs of headroom still to play with on that audio channel. I'm in the habit of using the last channel as my network channel. So that's what I'm going to do, use the last ADAT channel as my ASIO input and output for VST System Link. Let's do that in CUBASE. And now in Nuendo. Now let's click the active button in both applications, in CUBASE and in Nuendo. You see that? In Nuendo, instantly I can see that it's detected CUBASE. And let's go to CUBASE. It's instantly detected the Nuendo machine. Now you see the column here called online? This is telling us that the Nuendo machine is not currently online. Same on the Nuendo machine, the CUBASE machine is currently not online. So let's press the online button here in Nuendo machine. And let's go to the CUBASE machine and press online. You see it says that Nuendo is 0 now, meaning it's online. Let's go to the Nuendo machine. It sees that CUBASE is online too. Now before we get even more excited and press play and try to use this, we have to make sure that both tempos on the two machines are the same, or else things could be out of time and the tempo changes don't look right, etc. Now if you do have tempo changes in one of your machines, what you can do is export the tempo map and then import that into the other machines. See the video chapters on import and export for this. Let's close this window in CUBASE, and then close this window in Nuendo, and let's press play in CUBASE. Look at Nuendo. It's instantly playing. What I'm going to do is press stop in Nuendo, and look over in CUBASE. It's stopped. Press play. It's playing here. Press stop. It stopped over here. These two machines are now locked together. We can send audio back and forth and MIDI back and forth. Now let's add the MIDI information to VST System Link. Let's go back to Device Setup. And here's how many MIDI ins we can have and MIDI outputs. I'm going to make 5 on each machine. Let's go to Nuendo. Now this 5 doesn't mean MIDI channels. This means MIDI ports. You can have up to 16 MIDI ports with 16 MIDI channels. Times those together, you have a lot of MIDI channels. Now I'm going to create a MIDI track in CUBASE and send it to Nuendo. Then in Nuendo, I'm going to open up a virtual instrument and then send that audio back into CUBASE. Let's do this right now. Create a MIDI track. I'm going to move it to the top. I'm going to rename it. Select my output for the MIDI track. You can see it here as VSL, VST System Link 1 out. And then I can give it a MIDI channel. I'm going to open this up a bit and just press the monitor button so that when I play on my keyboard, we can see the light coming out right now. Now let's go to Nuendo. Let's close this window down. Shut down the mixer. Go to our virtual instruments. And here's where I'm going to select the A1 synth. This is the free synth that comes with Nuendo and CUBASE. Now I'm going to make a MIDI track. I'm going to take the input of that MIDI track, and it'll be from the Virtual System Link 1 in. So it was going out of CUBASE and into Nuendo. Then I'm going to send the out to my A1 synthesizer. And just so I can hear it, I'm going to press the monitor button. Now I'm going to play the keyboard that's hooked up to my CUBASE machine. And remember, the MIDI is going into the MIDI track in CUBASE, through the VST System Link, into Nuendo, into the A1, and we should see some lights popping up. There we go. So we can see all the lights there. Now we really can't hear anything yet, can we? Let's go to our mixer. We should be able to see this. There we go. I'm playing this from the CUBASE machine. Now the reason you can't hear anything in Nuendo is because I don't have the audio hooked up from the Nuendo machine into my mixer. Now we could easily have done that, But what I want to do is show you how I'm going to send the audio back now into CUBASE. The A1 synth's output is right here. Let's send it out one of the outputs. You can see it's already going out output number 1, the stereo out. So let's go back to CUBASE and make an audio channel. There's my audio channel. Let's name it. I'll call it my return virtual synth. Set the input to stereo in. There we go. The output's going to master so we can hear it. And now let's press the monitor button. We should be able to hear it. What I'm going to do is play the keyboard in the CUBASE machine. It's going over to Nuendo, coming back over to CUBASE. Watch this. That's amazing. Now we need to do one more thing. Let's go back to Nuendo, close down this mixer, and add an audio channel. There we go. Now this is our mix from CUBASE. It's coming in the first inputs in Nuendo, and we want it to go out the second output. Remember, the A1 virtual synth is going out the first outputs. So we want the mix that's coming in from CUBASE to go back to CUBASE, but on output number 2. All right. Let's turn on the monitor so it runs through. And now let's go back to CUBASE, add an audio track, and call this return mix. Now what inputs did it come in on? Remember, stereo in number 2. It's going to our master. Let's turn on the monitor. Now I should be able to hit play now, play my synthesizer, and we'll hear everything. Let's look in Nuendo. And now I'm going to play some MIDI keyboards here. And let's stop this. Not the best synth line. I have to work on it for the song. But you get the picture here. I can send things all over the place. Now let's go back to Nuendo and remember the mix that's coming in from CUBASE. I can now change the EQ, add insert effects, tons of stuff. Let's do this. Let's hit play. And the audio is, remember, going to come from CUBASE into Nuendo. Let me alter the audio. Let's put an insert effect on. Let's try another one. And then let's stop it. Now I know that was a lot of information, but watch this video over and over and over until you can do it on your own. There are so many possibilities with VST System Link. So basically my CUBASE system didn't do any of the processing. I sent my mix to the Nuendo machine, where I could have processed the mix with EQs, effects, really beefed it up, used a lot of stuff, and then send it back to CUBASE. CUBASE isn't sweating at all, but my Nuendo machine is working hard. I also played MIDI on my CUBASE machine, but my Nuendo machine did all the work with the virtual instrument. I could have added effects on the virtual instrument, MIDI effects, audio effects, anything I wanted. And then of course send it back to CUBASE. Once again, my CUBASE machine didn't even break a sweat, but my Nuendo machine is doing the work. This is great if the CUBASE machine was already filled with a huge project, and then I need another system to take my project a little bit further to get the job done. As you can see, it's endless. It's a lot of fun. VST system link.